Hello and welcome everyone who have recently joined us. My name is Evangeline Arithwala and I'm the Alumni Engagement Officer at the CSC. And today we have with us our webinar speaker who will be presenting on the topic Changing Behaviors Towards Environment in Pakistan. This webinar is part of the CSC's Climate Action webinar series. Today, presenting this topic is Sana Rasool. I'm sure you can see her on the screen. Hello, Sana, and welcome to you. Sana is an environmental engineer currently working at Pakistan's Ministry of Climate Change. She is passionate about participatory approaches towards solving the climate crisis. She's also worked to develop innovative strategies for behavioral change towards the environment and to clean up the backlog of pollution. I'm pleased to say Sana is a 2016 Commonwealth Scholar from Pakistan, where she completed her, she's completed her MSc in Climate Change Science and Policy at University of Bristol. And while I was watching the news today, I did come across the information that today's topic at COP26, or today's theme rather at COP26, is about women representation within the climate change space. So I'm very happy to say that our two webinar speakers for today, as part of the CSC's Climate Action webinar series, are both female. And Sana, I'm so pleased to say that you're going to present on this topic today and give a perspective of your work and expertise, especially with focus on Pakistan. So over to you, and on behalf of the entire CSC team, welcome.
Thank you, Eva, and very warm welcome to all the participants of today's session. Thank you for taking the time to attend the session, and I hope this will be a multi-dimensional communication between us regarding the topic of changing behaviors towards the environment. So Eva has very kindly already introduced me. Just a quick profile overview. I'm Sana Rasool. I'm an environmental engineer. And I've done my master's in climate change science and policy from the University of Bristol as a Commonwealth Scholar, of course. On my return to Pakistan, I joined the Ministry of Climate Change, where I'm working on several projects, but my focus area is water and sanitation, which is SDG 6. However, today's webinar is in particular context to SDG 13, which is on climate action. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll share with you a very innovative kind of behavioral change movement that we have launched here in Pakistan. And I'd love to hear your feedback and your suggestion on what you think about it. But before we do that, let's have a quick overview of climate change on a global and regional level and see what's in store for us in the coming years. This data on this particular slide has been taken from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's most recent assessment report, the AR6 report. The graph on the left of the screen shows the unprecedented increase in temperature that we have witnessed only over the last 150 years compared to the past 2000 years. So you can see that in the past 150 years, due to industrialization, due to industrial activity, the increase in temperatures has been around 1.5 degrees. The graph to the right of the screen, the graph B, shows what the observed temperature is. If I can just minimize this area. Yeah. So this is the observed temperature rise in all over the world due to anthropogenic and natural causes. Whereas the blue graph, the blue data over here at the bottom shows what the temperature rise would have been only in under natural conditions without any human interventions. In other words, industrial activity, especially global greenhouse gas emissions due to the use of fossil fuel energy, has contributed to the global warming situation that we see today. So in this IPCC sixth assessment report, the representative concentration pathways have been replaced by shared socioeconomic pathways, SSP scenarios. Now, what this means is that some of the most brilliant scientists from all over the world have come together, to model not only the increased temperature over the coming years, but also the socioeconomic conditions and how they're likely to change in the coming years over this century. So with that data all assimilated and compiled together, they have simulated various scenarios. The SSP 1.9 on the table right here is the most optimistic, but honestly the most unrealistic scenario. Under this scenario, we are likely to witness a temperature increase of around 1.8 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. And the reason why I say this is an unrealistic scenario is because it's only possible if we limit our use of non-renewable energy altogether right at this moment, and if we stop the environmental pollution in its tracks right now. But unfortunately, we are seeing that we're still facing some backlash and some hesitancy in doing this. So it looks unrealistic to be able to achieve this scenario by the end of this century. The other extreme is the SSP 8.5 scenario, which is also called the business as usual scenario. Under this scenario, we might see a temperature increase of up to more than 5 degrees Celsius actually by the end of the century. And this is going to have devastating consequences for the planet. The extinction rate, for one, is going to be several times higher than the background rate, which means that we'll be losing out on many of the terrestrial and marine species that we have right now. Many spaces in the world are also going to become uninhabitable. Especially the arid and semi-arid regions across the world are at a greater risk of becoming uninhabitable in the coming decades. Water scarcity situation is also going to get much worse, especially in these arid areas, which are very vulnerable to climate change as it is today. Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, is among the top 10 most vulnerable countries to climate change due to several factors. And one of those factors you can see on the screen right now in this graph. So this map shows you that more than 60% of Pakistan's area lies in an arid region of the world. Some of the hottest places on the map are in Pakistan. Sibi and Jaqibabad, two of Pakistan's cities, record temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius or more, and they're known as some of the hottest places in the world. We are at a risk of desertification, and the evapotranspiration rates are also significantly high. Due to that, water scarcity is a very major problem in Pakistan. You can see that Pakistan lies in a region of the world which is physically scarce in water. And this water scarcity is only going to be exacerbated with climate change in the coming years. The air quality, in terms of air quality, we're not doing much better. The air quality in many of Pakistan's cities is almost at the hazardous level. In fact, this data has just been taken from the IQ Air website this morning. And you can see that two of Pakistan's cities are among the top 10 most polluted cities in the world. Lahore has a pollution level that shows hazardous air quality at the moment. So this is again a point of major concern here in Pakistan. Over the past few years, we've also witnessed rising frequency and intensity of extreme events in the country. Let me share some examples with you. The 2010 floods in Pakistan were the worst floods in 100-year history of this subcontinent region, the India, Pakistan, Bangladesh region. And the interesting thing is that floods and droughts have been recurrent events in Pakistan. On the one hand, the intensity and frequency of floods has increased, and on the other hand, we're also witnessing more severe droughts, especially in the arid desert regions of Thar, Cholistan, etc., especially in the low-lying areas of Pakistan. Heat waves are also killing not only hundreds, but thousands of people annually across the country as temperatures soar, especially in June, July months. And flash flooding has also become a common phenomena in the mountainous regions because of glacier melting and glacier lake outburst floods. Sometimes these flash floods, they are instantaneous, massive floods that wipe out entire villages altogether within a matter of minutes. And this is a devastating problem that we've seen in mountainous regions of of the country in recent years. In 2018, we also saw a locust attack, which was very detrimental to the agriculture productivity that year, considering that 21% of Pakistan's GDP is derived from the agricultural sector. This is a serious concern in terms of food security in the country. So this was an overview of the key problems, the key climate challenges here in Pakistan. Now let's look at some of the existing behaviors of people towards the environment here in Pakistan. Unfortunately, we see that littering is a common sight in many areas of the country. You can see these huge piles of waste even in metropolitan and urban areas. And normally they are burnt in open air. The waste is openly burnt in public spaces. And we understand that open air burning is a very dangerous activity for the environment. It results in hazardous air pollution. It releases harmful chemicals such as dioxins and furans, as well as PM 2.5 material, which can be detrimental to human and animal health. Pakistan is still using lower quality fuels, the Euro 2 and Euro 4 fuels. Now, let me tell you that the government has mandated that by the end of the year, we have to shift to Euro 5, which is a higher standard fuel and low in lead content. But we also have to see that we cannot enforce stringent measures instantaneously and immediately, considering that a lot of the population in Pakistan lives below the poverty line, and they live in the lower and the lower middle income segments. So if enforcing such policies and making this a burden, an economic burden on them, would also not be the sustainable way forward. So we have to balance between these two elements, pro-poor development and sustainable development at the same time. Another unfortunate incident that we witnessed only last year, hazardous waste from some hospital in Karachi, which is a coastal city in Pakistan, washed up on the beach. Now, despite stringent standards, hazardous waste management policies and standards, we still get to witness these kind of unfortunate events, which show that something is lacking somewhere and behavioral change is required at some level. This is a picture of the river Ravi, which is a tributary of the Indus River. And this is River Ravi in Lahore. Now, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that 100% of the contaminated sewerage, as well as industrial waste, is often dumped into this river without treatment, which is a serious point of concern. But to me, this is perhaps the most heartbreaking of all the pictures. And this is quite a common phenomena, actually. So you can see this person who's apparently from an affluent class, considering the type of car that he's driving, who's just dumping the waste out of the vehicle in a public area and then just driving past casually. And we get to see a lot of that happening around. I'd be really interested in knowing if this happens in your part of the world as well. This is the kind of behavior that we'd have to change, and we'd all have to take responsibility for the environment, a collective responsibility. It's not only the responsibility of the government to take care of the waste issue, and it's not only the metropolitan corporation that has to do this, the people have to own it too. So it's a public and it's a shared resource that everyone has to take care of. So before I introduce the movement that we've taken up, I like to discuss the story behind it. We've launched several interesting and ambitious projects to take care of these problems that I've just discussed with you. One of them is the 10 billion tree tsunami project. This is a flagship project of the ministry at the moment, and we are aiming to plant 10 billion trees throughout the country in the next 10 years. There's another ambitious project to clean up the backlog of pollution in the waterways across the country in the coming years. These are projects worth billions of dollars, and we've learned through previous experiments and also through ongoing activities that projects can be made sustainable and long-lasting with positive outcomes only if we have a very solid component of behavioral change in these projects. So in other words, behavioral change makes these projects result in positive outcomes, because that's when people start to own the positive outcomes that come out of these projects. And keeping this in mind, we introduced what is called the Clean Green Pakistan movement, which is the topic of today's discussion. The Clean Green Pakistan movement is a flagship initiative of the Ministry of Climate Change, and it was initiated on the instructions of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, back in 2018. This movement has two major components. These are the Clean Green Pakistan Index and the Clean Green Championship Program. So I'll just take a few minutes in an overview of these two components. So basically, there are these 5 indicators: water, sanitation, hygiene, solid waste, and plantation. And these 5 indicators have been selected based on the key climate and environment challenges in the country, and they've been prioritized above the other sectors. The Clean Green Pakistan Index component of the Clean Green movement basically brings the cities of Pakistan together in a kind of competition. So these cities perform activities against these 5 indicators, and they're given scores according to the activities they have performed. And eventually the city with the highest score gets financial recognition and financial rewards and recognition from the federal government. So the aim is to build a type of positive competition between these city and district administrations, so they can earn, and even in the provincial administration, so they can earn the maximum points and get that recognition on a national level. Let me tell you that in 2018, when we started this movement, we had 20 volunteer cities from across Pakistan that competed against these indicators. But in 2020, the second round of these Clean Green competitions that we're doing, we have more than 80 cities that are now 80 cities participating in this project. So that tells us that this movement is gaining some traction. But for me, the Clean Green Championship program is the more defining element of this, this movement. And this is what makes this really unique and innovative, in my opinion. Now, this is an example of a participatory democracy approach. We have tried to take this down and devolve it at the grassroots level. So Clean Green Champions are basically Pakistani citizens from any background, gender, demographic group, age group. They can participate, they can register themselves as champions on the Clean Green Pakistan website, and they can perform activities in the 5 regions that I just mentioned in the previous slide. So these activities are then scored according to their impact. We have a comprehensive scoring strategy for these activities. So once verified, the activities are then scored, and they're given points based on the impact that they've created. And this over here shows you the points, the reward system. So we've defined these various categories of points, and champions with the highest level of points eventually win financial rewards and recognition from the government. So there are national champions in environmental movements in their own categories. So when I talk about this Clean Green Championship movement, I often like to quote the example of the TikTok movement that we saw a few years back. It gained a lot of traction and momentum all of a sudden, and we saw a lot of young people out there with their devices, with their phones and their cameras, and they were recording activities, daily activities, getting up in the morning, making themselves a cup of coffee, and putting it online just for views and for gaining recognition. So it kind of created a motivation and an enthusiasm in them to do these activities. Now imagine if we can translate that same kind of motivation and enthusiasm in bringing this youth towards positive activities in terms of contributing to the environmental cause. So we are trying to build this kind of enthusiasm that they'll perform activities, earn points, and they should have this kind of sense of positive competition to earn the maximum points and then gain recognition from the government on a national level. So this was the idea behind this. And let me tell you that we've gone above and beyond, and we're trying to include the youth into these also through educational institutions. We've launched comprehensive guidelines for universities, colleges, and schools to kind of include the youth into this activity. There have been several success stories. Unfortunately, due to time, I wouldn't be able to share with you many stories. However, some of the key highlighting issues, the stories, one of these is of a teacher in a rural area who, along with her students, planted hundreds of trees in that local area. and she was given recognition and rewards by the government for her actions in contributing to the plantation drive in her local area. Another very talented young mind made a rainwater harvesting system for his particular village, and he won recognition on the basis of that. So there are several very interesting stories, and this is basically the agenda of the movement, that we want to bring these people forward, incentivize them to empower them so that they can take action to address these environmental problems from the grassroots level. Now, this is way too early to say if the movement has been successful or not, because it's only been a couple of years since we have actually launched this, and it's in the running process. Over the years, we've learned we've learned how to improve several aspects. We've learned how to make it more participatory. We're still, I'd say, in the process of taking it out to the people, seeing their reactions, seeing their suggestions, their feedback, and trying to market it to as many people as we can so they can be a part of this movement. Behavioral change, I think you'd understand, is something that takes time and builds gradually. So it cannot be done overnight. There are lots of hurdles in the way. There are lots of stakeholders involved who have to be taken on board if this has to be made a success. The education system has to be on board. The social system, the cultural system, the traditional values, they have to be assimilated into this, and only then we can see positive results. But overall, in the 2 years that it's there, it's gotten a lot of positive feedback from the people, and I think that if particular improvements can be made, it can be quite a game changer in Pakistan in terms of behaviors towards the environment. So I think that it's the time that the world should come together to address these kinds of issues, because these are common issues all over the world, and we have to kind of empower the citizens to take action if we really need to meet the SSP 1.9 scenario and try to limit the temperature increase to 2 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. It's time to take action, and it's time to take collaborative action with all stakeholders involved. It has to be a participatory approach. I would really like to thank the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, not only for organizing this webinar today on this important topic and allowing a platform for discussion and debate on this issue, but also in the first place for the scholarship that's enabled me to build a strong professional and academic network and to be sitting where I am today. Had it not been for that opportunity, I might not be a part of these very interesting movements that the government is now developing here in Pakistan. The network that I developed back in Bristol, they've been with me throughout this journey. I'm still in contact with the professors, as well as my colleagues there who are still working on these scenarios, and they are bringing in latest information and modern touch to all these. They've given good suggestions to kind of improve and build on the successes of these projects. So with that, I'd really like to thank you all once again for listening. And I welcome your suggestions, your feedback, and any questions that you might have. I'd hand over back to Eva. And Eva, are you still there?
Yeah, all here. Thank you so much, Sana, for your brilliant presentation and for shedding light on the climate change issues that have been observed over the years in Pakistan, and very recently, in Pakistan. You also shared information on the need for behavior change towards environment, and gave information on the Clean Green Pakistan movement. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us. I would now like to invite our attendees to ask your questions. You can send in your questions via the chat box. And if you wish to unmute yourself and ask your questions, you can please indicate that with your question. Or if you'd rather have me ask your question on behalf of you to our speaker, Sana, please indicate that as well. Sana, if you're ready, should we go ahead with our questions?
Yes, please.
We do have a question that has come through from Otema. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Okay, thank you, Eva. Thank you, Sana. I am Patrick Otema, a Commonwealth scholar at Bangor University currently. I'm doing MSc Agroforestry and Food Security. Thank you for the wonderful presentation and the behavior change that you have been impacted on me right now as far as the environment conservation is concerned. You talked about water and sanitation being your core area of concentration, and you mentioned issues on water scarcity. I would like to find out how do we address this water scarcity, putting into consideration the climate change influence and some other ethical issues concerning the measures that we use to address the competition for water scarcity as an essential resource.
That's a really good question and a very tough one indeed, because water scarcity is, I think, one of the most serious challenges created by climate change, and especially for these tropical countries, the Middle East, and countries such as Pakistan and Afghanistan. This climate crisis has exacerbated that water scarcity issue. The water tables are falling drastically, and the available water resources are becoming unusable day by day. So considering all of these challenges ahead, it's a momentous task to deal with this issue. What we are doing is we're trying to come up with adaptation strategies. So rainwater harvesting and floodwater harvesting are two of the most important and most prioritized areas at the moment, especially at the urban level. Here in Pakistan, we are blessed by the monsoon rains. However, because of mismanagement of this natural resource, we often end up being flooded. We face a lot of urban flooding due to monsoons. So what the government and the private sector stakeholders are now trying to do is to come together in participatory approaches to harvest this monsoon water and then to store it through floodwater harvesting, through rainwater harvesting, to add to the resource of water that we already have. In addition to this, we are also trying to conserve groundwater. I think this forestation drive, the 10 billion tree tsunami project, one of the ambitions of this project is that we have more forest cover, which will prevent erosion and which will increase groundwater recharge. So you know that forestation increases that groundwater recharge capacity of the ground. Therefore, we are trying to bring these kind of projects that can contribute to the solution of this water scarcity issue. I hope that addresses your question, Otema.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very happy. I wanted to expand a little bit. What are some of the management strategies that you put in place right now outside the harvesting adaptation strategies? What about the management issues?
Yeah, that's the management in terms of, are you talking about the management of the existing water resources?
Yes.
Yeah. That's again, that's a good question, but I'll be very candid and honest over here. Water, it's kind of a challenge to manage water resources here in Pakistan, because I'm not sure if you're aware that there are territorial rights to water in many parts of the country, and this means that these traditional rights have continued for years and years, and people own particular areas where this groundwater is available, which is not available to other stakeholders in the area. So overcoming these traditional rights and overhauling the entire system is going to take some time. We are bringing in new policies, but I think more than the policies, we need to first change the behavior of people and make them realize that this is a shared resource for all stakeholders, instead of just selfishly storing that resource for some people and then keeping others from using it. So we are working on that, but it's a daunting task ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Otema.
Yeah.
Thank you, Otema, for your brilliant question and for kickstarting the Q&A session with your question. We have a couple of questions coming for you, Sana. So I am going to bring up one of the questions from Dolapo, sorry, if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. There are numerous waste disposal methods that negatively impact the environment. So as you have mentioned in your presentation, open air burning negatively impacts the environment. However, governments do engage in discarding waste to dump sites, which at best is a makeshift alternative. What are
Yes.
your thoughts on what environmentally friendly suggestions do you have for a proper municipal waste disposal, especially for non-biodegradable waste?
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't catch the name, but I think this is a wonderful question and one that's very close to my heart. Yeah, I'd like to, share with you something that I've been working on in the recent couple of months. This is called an integrated resource recovery center. So we've been trying to introduce that idea in the municipal solid waste management system. So what an integrated resource recovery center means is that it segregates the waste. It sees, first of all, it sees the waste as a resource instead of as a problem. It segregates the waste into different components. Let's say the plastic waste, the liquid waste, municipal waste, organic waste, metals, poisonous, hard, hazardous waste, which is altogether a different category. And then it sees how these can be used as a resource. So normally we have a high content of organic waste in our municipal waste because of the cultural and traditional composition of the waste. We are trying to convert this organic waste into compost, which can then be used in this 10 billion tree tsunami project to plant the trees across the country. We're also trying to turn this plastic waste into plastic lumber by heating this plastic at 400 degrees Celsius and then converting it into a product called plastic lumber, which then can be used as a byproduct for making outdoor furniture, windows, railings, etc. So yes, we're trying to introduce this concept, but this is still just the start of it. It has to be a long way. It has to go a long way before we can get there. But we've already launched projects in Islamabad and in some other areas of the country, and we've seen positive outcome of these projects. I think that can be one solution to municipal solid waste management. There can certainly be other ways to kind of address this issue. And I'd love to hear if you've got any suggestions on that.
Thank you, Sana, for your response to the question. Once again, to remind our attendees, we do have enough time for our Q&A session. So please feel free to ask your questions to the speaker in the chat box. Equally, if you are working in a similar sector, please feel free to share your thoughts and share your experience on your country perspective in the chat box. Our next question is from Rashmi. Rashmi, if you can please unmute yourself to ask your question. Hi, Rashmi, are you still here with us? Oh, all right, I can ask. Okay, so the next, while I do come back to Rashmi's question, the next we have is Sociala Tinilau, who is happy to unmute and ask their question to you.
Hi, thank you, Eva, for the opportunity, and thank you, Sana, for the very informative presentation. Really like the presentation, especially it's very much related to what I'm doing at the moment as well. So my question is regarding that initiative, the two initiatives that you had, the CGC, or the Clean Green Champions, and the CGCM.
Yes.
Yeah, so my question is about financing, because I came from a very small country. It's an island. And, it's very hard for us to initiate such initiatives because of lack of financing. So my question is about whether these initiatives and the funds that you're going to give to these champions and community comes from the government coffers, or did you have managed to solicit the funds from the UNEP or the GEF, the Global Environment Facility?
Thank you, Sosil. I'm sorry, Sosilar, right?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yes, financing has always been a major challenge for developing countries and countries that are already struggling with the budget in terms of environmental challenges. We planned long and hard, and we thought about how we could materialize this Clean Green Pakistan movement with the limited funding that we have, especially in the environment sector. But thanks to the commitment of the federal government this time, especially under the leadership of Imran Khan, who's a very avid climate enthusiast himself, and we were able to manage this funding from the government public funding alone. We didn't have to take support from the donors at this moment, but seeing the success of the Clean Green Pakistan movement and the impact it's creating, we hope to garner support from international donors in the coming years. So how did we manage to fund this activity especially in the first, the seeding years, the first couple of years? The way we did this was that we only had 20 cities that were participating, and we were giving out awards to only, a couple of cities that were leading the race. So the rewards weren't very major in terms of, the financing. These were just, the financial rewards were just an indicator. It was kind of just an appreciation of the efforts that the governments have already put in, and everybody understood that. It's more about recognition from the national government. So, this idea of being named as the best performing city, that was a very powerful motivation in bringing these cities in the competition. And even more powerful in case of the champions, in case of young people who wanted this kind of appreciation from the governments. They were already doing such activities. And if their, activities were being recognized by the government, what better thing could they want? We are going to increase the financial awards in the coming years with the support that we get from the people. But for now, this is how we started it. We started taking small steps and we have come this far. Let's see how far we can go with this.
Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your question. The next, we have Rashmi back with us. Rashmi, would you like to unmute yourself to ask your question?
Yes, hi Sana, and thank you so much for introducing us to the Clean Green Pakistan movement. My question is about human behavior change in terms of waste management. So what are the strategies that you have adopted to implement the human behavior change in terms of degradable and non-degradable waste management?
Right. So if we go back to the Clean Green Pakistan indicators, the 5 priority areas. So over here, you can see that solid waste is one of the main areas. And on the Clean Green Pakistan website, you'd find lots of activities that have been listed as kind of, a guiding guideline for the champions to perform these activities and earn points accordingly. So all of that information, very comprehensive information, is available on the website for people to see. Some of the activities in solid waste could be in terms of recycling the waste that's already there, forming compost out of waste, segregating the waste at the source and then treating this waste and so on. So we are trying to incentivize these activities, and then we also encourage the youth and the people, the champions, to bring forward their own ideas. They might have even more creative ideas than the people sitting and making those ideas here in the offices. So we encourage them to come up with their own ideas and see how best they can solve problems in their own localities, and then earn points according to that. So just quickly, the scoring of what they're doing is based on the impact create. So if the action itself is small, but it has a huge impact for the local area, it's likely to get more points and more recognition for that champion. So that's the philosophy behind this Clean Green Pakistan movement.
Thank you. And just one doubt I have, is this for a general public, for a cooperative housing society, or like a set of community? How does this apply?
Yeah, so it's got different components. The Clean Green Pakistan Index is for city administrations, which are, you know, the local administrations, the tehsil administration, this district administrations that participate in that Clean Green Pakistan Index. The Clean Green Pakistan Champion Movement, on the other hand, is for the public. It's open to all corporations, universities, schools, colleges, and even individuals can participate in that movement, earn points, and then you know, be ranked accordingly. So it's open to all. It's been devolved at the grassroots level.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you for your question, Rashmi. We do have a couple of more minutes before we end the webinar. So if you still have questions, please do send in via the chat box. In the meantime, Sana, we do have a couple of questions that attendees have sent in advance to the webinar. So I would like to ask them to you if you're ready.
Yeah, please.
Great. So the first question is, how can lower and middle income people's behavior be changed for good?
Wow, that's a very pertinent question and very related to the context of Pakistan, because a significant proportion of the population lives in the lower and the lower middle income categories. So for the public policy making sector, this is an important statistic, because the policies have to be made in a way that they should be pro-poor, yet sustainable at the same time. This particular movement, the Clean Green Pakistan movement, it's trying to encourage these people at the grassroots level to take initiative. The financial component, the financial recognition that we've introduced is a very big motivation and incentive for these people to perform activities within their local area. Maybe they can form compost at home. They can go to the school, plant trees in their local areas. They can build, you know, small water collection and storage areas, etc. So these kind of activities can promote these people to integrate very small environmentally conscious decisions into their life, and therefore change the overall attitude towards the environment. And therefore these the lower income categories can also be included in our sustainable development journey. So with that in mind, we designed the Clean Green Pakistan movement to be inclusive of these categories as well.
Wonderful. The next question is, what is the relationship between poverty and changing behaviors?
Again, very relevant to the previous question that I just answered. Poverty. So if you're a bit familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we see that the fundamental needs of humans are the physiological needs, which include food and water. Only if these needs are addressed can they go on and think about a higher level needs. So environmental sustainability can only be achieved if these very basic needs are first addressed. So we'll have to kind of capture we'll have to fight this dragon of poverty before we can try to get some meaningful outcomes from our environmental sustainability initiatives. And that's probably why poverty is so high up on the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. We are trying to fight this menace of poverty at the same time, and take actions against the climate crisis. But I completely agree with the person who has just asked this question, that we'll have to prioritize and address poverty before we can talk about environmental sustainability in Pakistan.
Thank you for your response to that. We have a final question that's come through in our chat box from Nicholas. So if I may please ask Nicholas to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much, Eva, for allowing me to ask the question. Sana, thank you for the presentation. My name is Nicholas Okot. My question relates to how the system operates. Is it managed by the public sector, or is the private sector that handles it?
Sorry, could you please repeat, how is the management of, I didn't quite catch it. Yeah.
Yes, how do you manage the waste management part of it? Is the waste management handled by the private sector, or it is the government that actually does handle it? And if it is handled by the government, sorry, by the private sector, Are there incentives that the government provides to the private sector in terms of subsidies or in terms of maybe equipment to enhance their ability to manage that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicholas. So the beauty of this Clean Green Pakistan concept is that we're just here to monitor what's going on. We're not directly part of the activities. These activities are being performed by the stakeholders, who are the citizens, and who are the corporations, the city administrations, and so on. So traditionally, by policy, solid waste management is the concerned area of local governments and the city administrations. So they are directly dealing with solid waste, and it's completely up to them however they want to shape their policies and come up with innovative means to kind of use waste as a resource. We are just here to give them ideas of how to go about it and how to earn points. So once they streamline their solid waste management policy, their practices, they can then gain points based on the impact that they create, the waste issue that they address, and then they can gain recognition at national level based on their performance. So that's the idea behind it. It's not, solid waste management is not the area of focus of the federal government. We are just monitoring this entire Clean Green Pakistan thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Eva, before any further questions, I just put it out there. If there are participants here today who would like to share their own experiences from their own places on how behavioral change can be materialized and incentivized in their parts of the world, because I think this is a common problem that we face all over the world. So are there any other ideas out there of what's happening in different parts of the world and how this is being done, especially for the youth in that area, and how environmental change is being realized as a reality in different parts? I'd really love to hear your feedbacks and whatever is happening in your areas of the world.
Definitely. And so I'd like to invite our attendees to perhaps unmute themselves and share your thoughts to respond to our speaker's question or request on hearing your thoughts or your experiences on dealing with this situation back in your home country, or what has been your experience. Would there be any volunteers to share your thoughts?
Hi, can I go ahead?
Yes,
Rashmi.
certainly. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I come from India, and we have a similar movement called as Swachh Bharat Abhiyan in India.
Mm-hmm.
So in that movement, we can involve by taking pledges of keeping our environment clean. There are certain challenges set by the government to keep the area clean. There are some drives that are conducted on various festivals or days by the government. And we can, like how you have a green cities competition, there also exists a kind of competition between the administrations to and the best administration is given ranks as per that.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the Swachh Bharat movement, Rashmi. Do we have any similar movements or campaigns in your home country? Yes, Otema, I can see you have raised your hand. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Eva. One of the movements I can say in my country, I come from Uganda, and it has been a long time that the government is trying to eradicate the use of polythene bags, and they came up with a campaign of, they call it in the local language, Tuve Mukavera, that we move away from using the kavera. But it has been challenging in that
Yes,
we campaign that we should move away from using the kavera, something like that, the polythene bags, but you find that there are still industries that manufacture these polythene bags to be used, and yet we are fighting hard to remove it from the use. So I don't know how that is supposed to be, how the government should change the mindset and come up with a strategy to stop this use, because it is still the industries in the country that manufacture these polythene bags, and yet we are trying to address the issue and the effects of the polythene bags in the country. So that is what is going on in my country.
Thank you for sharing, Otema. That's, I mean, I'd just like to add that we're facing a similar problem here in Pakistan as well. We've gone on to ambitious drives to fight this menace of single-use plastic bags, to be honest. But, you know, punitive measures don't work in the longer run. You know, you can find a particular corporation or particular individuals for using these, but it's not really going to do a lot in terms of changing people's behaviors. We need long-term strategies and intrinsic motivation to, you know, I think incentivize these people to give up on these harmful practices and adapt, you know, different practices. I think that's the most challenging part of policymaking for me.
Exactly.
Behavioral change is really, you know, a difficult thing to kind of incentivize and materialize.
Exactly.
Thank you, Otema, for sharing your thoughts. Do we have anyone else who would like to share your experience or thoughts in this area of work? Rashmi, did I see your hand raised, or is this from the previous time?
Oh yes, I just wanted to say that the non-governmental organization participation also plays a good role here. Like we have NGOs such as Kabadi Walas, etc., who collect the single-use plastic from us, and then they work as a mediator between the administration and the general public.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rashmi, for sharing that. To give a context of what a kabariwala is for our attendees, they are scrap waste collectors who are normally unorganized sector workers who come door to door to collect your scrap waste. So yeah, thank you so much, Rashmi, for sharing that information. Would anyone else like to comment or share your experience or thoughts? We still have a couple of more minutes to go. Okay, perhaps not. Nicholas, oh, is that a clap? Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Nicholas, I see your hand raised. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, I thank you, and nice to hear from my countryman, Otema, about the use of polythene bag. And I want to add on something that happens in the city of Kampala, which also is quite an innovative approach, is to allow the private sector participate in the waste management. And it's become kind of like a business. So the private sector farms, including the youth, actually have their own small farm that will collect garbage or waste from the small households, and even within the city center, but they work closely with the government. Now they go around and collect the waste, then they go and sort them out, and the one that can be recycled gets recycled. Then the part of the other waste that cannot be recycled, actually they dump it in the government dumping center, field, government dumping field, and from there I think government now takes it up and use them as other waste that can be used as manure and so forth. So it's become kind of like a business. If you don't have a business, you cannot really go into waste management business, and you set up, and they'll definitely support you to find an area where you can collect it, solid waste, and manage it. But the component like plastic, steel, normally is sent back to industries for recycling, and that's how they make some of their money.
That's wonderful. Sounds really interesting.
Thanks, Nicholas. For attendees, I would also like to let you know that Nicholas will be one of our webinar speakers presenting his webinar very shortly. So thank you so much, Nicholas, for sharing your thoughts on this. If we don't have any further comments or thoughts, perhaps we can bring the Q&A session to an end. Okay. If we can please go to the last slide, Sana.
Yeah.
Wonderful. If our attendees would like to connect with Sana Rasool, please feel free to connect with her via LinkedIn. If you feel that you have any further questions or would like to discuss this topic further, she's more than happy to connect with you via LinkedIn and take this discussion further. So please do connect with her on LinkedIn. But with this, I will now bring the Q&A session to an end and this webinar to an end. Thank you, Sana, for your brilliant presentation around your work on policymaking and Clean Green Pakistan movement, and for presenting your webinar topic in a very engaging way, and for engaging with our attendees.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thanks, Eva. Thank you to all the participants for attending the session.
Thank
To
you.
our attendees who have joined us, thank you so much for joining us and for engaging with us through your questions, and also for sharing your thoughts and experiences, and sharing with us information on similar situations in your home country. We hope that you continue discussions around this area, not just through LinkedIn, but also through your networks within your home countries. So thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you so much, Sana, for presenting your webinar with us and for sharing your information.